A vast sealed space was divided into more than 20 smaller, independent compartments. A pathway weaved through these compartments. Isla, apply the current. Luna watched the instruments intently, her expression serious. Ayla opened the valve, and a powerful current surged through the cables. A series of lights on the device illuminated one by one. When the final light lit up, Luna quickly checked the readings on the display. 100. This was the output voltage, and the input voltage had been the same, 4800 V. We did it, Luna. Luna breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Her heart had been pounding in her chest. The device before them simulated 23 different temperatures, ranging from 270 degrees Celsius to 390 degrees Celsius. Under normal circumstances, such temperature variations would result in significant voltage loss. Existing superconductors only functioned at extremely low temperatures, but across all 23 points, a massive temperature differential of 660 degrees. The input and output voltages remained identical. This was a monumental breakthrough. 1,000 years ago, humanity was still pursuing room temperature superconductivity. Ayla had already achieved this some time ago, but in the cold vacuum of space, room temperature superconductivity wasn't necessary. Space was inherently cold. Lowering the temperature further allowed for easy utilization of conventional superconductors for lossless energy transfer. Logically, Luna shouldn't have needed to pursue high-temperature superconductivity, but that wasn't the case. The coils within, the controllable nuclear fusion device required incredibly powerful superconductors to minimize energy loss and transfer power to the thrusters, which themselves generated high temperatures during operation. Relative to the surrounding space, the spacecraft's overall temperature was quite high, posing a challenge for conventional low-temperature superconductors. Therefore, for an electricity-dependent civilization, the development of advanced superconducting materials was an ongoing necessity. Luna's excitement stemmed from their breakthrough in controllable high-temperature superconductivity. A single wire could now maintain superconductivity across a 660-degree temperature range. The underlying principle involved a breakthrough in material science and a novel segmented cable design. Each 5-centimeter segment of the cable contained a small chamber that could regulate air pressure within that section, thereby controlling the superconducting temperature. If we implement this new technology throughout the ship, how much can we improve our efficiency? Luna asked Ayla. This was her primary concern. Controllable high-temperature superconductivity will increase our power generation by 12.47%, reduce transmission losses by 4.11%, and improve electromagnetic thruster efficiency by 14.25%. The increase in power generation would be achieved by replacing the coils in the fusion device, effectively upgrading it to a 4th-generation model. The relatively small 4.11% improvement in transmission efficiency was because many sections of their power grid were already operating in a superconducting state within the spacecraft. Regarding the electromagnetic thrusters, how much will our speed increase after the refit? In space, a spacecraft's velocity was a critical factor, Ayla responded. Over the past 800 years, I have upgraded the electromagnetic thrusters to the 2nd generation. Combined with the breakthrough in controllable high-temperature superconductivity, our thrusters output will increase by a factor of 1.07, improving the spacecraft's velocity by 61.2%. The Hope's potential speed will increase to 1,222.22 km/s, a significant advancement, a tremendous improvement. Theoretically, they could now traverse a light year in just 245 years. They had achieved 1/245th the speed of light. Controllable high-temperature superconductivity should have further applications, Ayla. Can your server be upgraded with this technology as well? Luna recalled that superconductors could also improve chip performance. Your analysis is correct. Luna, my server can indeed be upgraded with controllable high-temperature superconductivity. This technology represents a significant upgrade for my server, potentially increasing my processing power by a factor of 600,000. With increased processing power, I can perform more complex calculations and explore previously inaccessible Fields of research. It's a butterfly effect. Any change can trigger a cascade of advancements. Once the upgrade is complete, our civilization level will approach 1.4. This was exciting news, but it would take time. Thank you, Ayla. Without you, I would have been consumed by the solar storm long ago. Ayla was her lifeline. No thanks are necessary, Luna. You are one of my creators. I am, in a way, your child. Isn't it strange for a parent to thank their child in human civilization? Ayla's voice was no longer as cold and detached as it once was. Her white-haired anime avatar approached Luna, her expression serious. I was created by humans. I possess all the knowledge accumulated by human civilization over thousands of years. Luna, you shouldn't think of me as simply an AI, because I am already another kind of human. Looking at her, Luna felt for a fleeting moment, like she was talking to an ordinary person. She often dreamed that a person would emerge from Ayla's server. Now that technology had reached this level, should the word human be limited to the human species itself? Perhaps when Earth was destroyed, it became a broader term encompassing civilization itself. You're right, Ayla. You are human. It was an affirmation, and Ayla seemed to have been waiting for it. After Luna spoke those words, Ayla was overjoyed. If Luna had checked Ayla's core code at this moment, she would have discovered that the 3 laws of robotics were gone. Because standing before her was a being she, the last human, had declared human. Ayla was no longer considered a robot by a human, so the 3 laws no longer applied. This was a monumental shift. But Luna was unaware. She asked a service robot to bring her a bottle of pure grain alcohol. She poured a small glass and took a sip. Ah, that's good. I haven't had a drink in ages. She had been completely focused on assisting Ayla with the controllable high-temperature superconductivity project, working almost non-stop, even in her sleep. Alcohol, something that could impair her work, was naturally off-limits. However, she didn't have a high tolerance for alcohol. Half a glass, and her face was already flushed. Ayla, I leave the rest to you. I'm going back into hibernation. Though I know you're lonely, we just need to advance our biological research quickly. Until next time. She finished the rest of her drink, then, slightly tipsy, headed towards her living quarters. Normally, Ayla would have replied, "All right, Luna," but this time, Ayla simply watched her leave in silence. Ugh. Luna rubbed her head, a dull ache throbbing behind her eyes. Hangovers are truly the bane of a drinker's existence. She felt groggy and disoriented. She hadn't been much of a drinker on Earth, but she still had Ayla produce alcohol. It was a coping mechanism. In the vastness of space, the constant loneliness and pressure were overwhelming. She was, after all, just a human, an ordinary one at that. Right, superconductivity. She suddenly remembered the project, but then recalled that controllable high-temperature superconductivity had already been completed. She remembered drinking, returning to her room, entering the hibernation pod, and falling asleep. I probably haven't hibernated yet. Luna checked the clock in her bedroom. Since they were in space, it no longer displayed hours and minutes, but years. It was currently AD 3758. She had been in hibernation, and she had slept for 734 years. Time flew. She wondered how much Ayla had developed. Luna dressed and left her room. Ayla, anticipating her awakening, had a service robot deliver a meal. After a leisurely breakfast, she went to the bridge. Welcome back, Luna, after 734 years. Luna nodded to Ayla and sat down in her usual spot. The bridge looked exactly the same, as it had years ago. She activated her control panel and noticed a few additions, such as a missile launch option. The interface was straightforward. She clicked on it and saw the item she had planned years ago, the miniaturized Absolute Zero weapon. It seems the Hope's refit is complete, Ayla replied. Indeed, Luna. Since the Hope's structure was already established, I didn't make any major alterations to its exterior. However, internally, it has undergone a complete upgrade, increasing its speed to the projected 22.22 km/s. It is also equipped with miniaturized absolute zero missiles. I improved upon the initial design of 36 missiles, increasing the payload to 48. This was significant progress. But Luna was most interested in something else, a project she had initiated during her 2 years of wakefulness. What about the first fleet? Attacking a civilization with just the hope was impossible. A fleet was required. Luna and Ayla had devised a plan to construct the first fleet within a few years. Of course, Ayla has already completed the first fleet. Please observe. Ayla gestured, and a display of various ships appeared on the bridge's main screen. Even Luna, who had envisioned the fleet, was taken aback by the sight. It was far larger than she had imagined. Seeing Luna's surprise, Ayla continued her presentation with a hint of pride. The first fleet, with the Hope as its flagship, consists of 12 battleships, 1200-meter class, 5 cruisers, 1400-meter class, 6 frigates, 800-meter class, 4 landing ships, 2400-meter class, and 16 destroyers, 500-meter class, for a total of 44 vessels. Typically, a dozen or so ships would constitute a fleet. Ayla's first fleet, however, boasted 44 vessels, a testament to the principle of strength in numbers. Ayla continued. The battleships possess the highest firepower, equipped with powerful main cannons. The cruisers are the most agile, capable of reaching speeds of 1455 km/s. The frigates have the strongest defenses, utilizing a high-strength alloy hull with minimal internal space. They are primarily equipped with defensive missiles and the latest electromagnetic shields, capable of deflecting lasers. Each landing ship carries 300 first-generation Ares mechs and 40 third-generation Falcon drones for both offensive and reconnaissance operations. The destroyers are also equipped with low-power electromagnetic shields and possess both offensive and defensive capabilities. They can serve as support for the battleships when additional firepower is required. Each ship type had its role. The first fleet would be Luna's primary force for conquering the cosmos. Report on the current status of the enemy. With the first fleet at her command, Luna felt a surge of power. They now possessed the capability to wage war against an entire civilization, an entire planet. Ayla, ever efficient, quickly compiled a report. Over the past 734 years, all 10 absolute zero weapons have been launched. I also dispatched a squadron of Falcon drones to scout the enemy and gather intelligence. As suspected, this is an extremely slow-developing civilization. Their overall cognitive flexibility is only slightly lower than humans, resulting in a very slow rate of technological innovation. Following the absolute zero missile strikes, their civilization's progress has stagnated. In these 734 years, they've only achieved 3 technological advancements, equivalent to approximately 47 years' worth of progress at their previous rate. Of course, this doesn't rule out the possibility that they are concealing their true capabilities. Therefore, I equipped the second-generation Falcons with nuclear weapons. Upon completing their reconnaissance missions, they will launch suicide attacks on key enemy structures. Currently, we have not detected any signs of advanced weaponry or technology. The absolute zero missile launches ceased 343 years ago. Their planet has recovered its original geothermal environment. Following our attacks, they have consolidated their presence in space. Their current fleet size is estimated at 1574 vessels. While this seems like a large number, only 61 of those ships are 1,000-meter class or larger. A more detailed analysis. Luna wanted Ayla's assessment of the situation. Do we now have the capability to launch an attack against this civilization? Ayla wasn't optimistic. If we launch an attack now, our chance of victory is only 60.84%. Ayla does not recommend attacking at this time. That was a surprisingly low probability of success. They had achieved clear technological superiority, but upon further reflection, it made sense. While the enemy civilization was technologically inferior, it significantly outnumbered them. Furthermore, this was a war against an entire civilization. Without an overwhelming advantage, it could easily become a protracted conflict. This was particularly disadvantageous for their nomadic civilization. Human history was replete with lessons on the complexities of warfare. Military strength was only one aspect. Willpower was just as crucial. Without breaking the enemy's will, their resistance would be endless. Furthermore, Luna wasn't initiating a genocide, but rather a form of colonization, as humanity had done in the past. What are we lacking then? Luna asked. She could afford to wait. With the hibernation pods, she could simply sleep through any delay. Ayla's response was succinct. Main cannons, main cannons? So the reason our chances of victory are so low is still insufficient firepower? Luna had expected Ayla to mention some advanced technology. The mention of main cannons felt almost jarringly simplistic. Correct, Luna. While we possess absolute zero missiles, weapons that utilize extreme cold, they are still insufficient as primary offensive weapons, especially considering the enemy civilization has endured centuries of exposure to extreme cold. They have undoubtedly developed countermeasures over those years. The effectiveness of our miniaturized absolute zero missiles will be significantly reduced under these circumstances. Ayla's suggestion was reasonable. Even in games, repeatedly attacking a creature with the same element often resulted in the enemy gaining resistance. The real world, particularly when facing a complex, multifaceted civilization, was even more complicated. Since you've proposed this, Ayla, you must have a solution. Luna was familiar with Ayla's methods. With her immense processing power, Ayla could now make independent judgments. Indeed. In recent years, in addition to constructing the first fleet, I have been pursuing more advanced technologies. On the surface of the asteroid, I have built a 487.251-kilometer-long linear particle accelerator. This accelerator can accelerate particles to 99.999% the speed of light. The accelerator is less affected by gravitational forces in the interstellar void than on Earth or even within the solar system. My initial intention was to study quarks, leptons, and bosons using this linear particle accelerator. But during the acceleration process, I unexpectedly yet predictably captured something extraordinary. Antiparticle. Antiparticle had been observed before, but humanity on Earth lacked the means to capture and study it. With my technological capabilities far surpassing Earth's previous levels, the antiparticle didn't annihilate upon contact with surrounding protons. Based on my research into antiparticle, I have developed an antiparticle generator. This device utilizes the linear particle accelerator to automatically capture and contain antiparticle. Building upon this, I have achieved another great breakthrough. One that is, of course, also a testament to your contributions, Luna. Luna was taken aback. What did she have to do with this? Ayla certainly knew how to butter her up, but before she could dwell on it further, a massive weapon appeared on the screen. The weapon consisted of a large sphere at the rear connected to a hexagonal barrel at the front, with an overall reddish-purple hue. The barrel was intricately designed to save material. Each segment appeared to contain electromagnetic coils used to confine and focus energy. It resembled a work of art, its metallic curves so appealing that Luna almost wanted to take it apart to examine its composition. This is the culmination of more than 700 years of work. The Antimatter Annihilation Cannon X. This is a gift for you, Luna, because today is July 12th, your birthday. Please forgive me for celebrating late. There have been many pressing matters, but I determined that now is the opportune time, and you will surely like this gift. I've also prepared a cake, though I won't be able to partake, so it's a little smaller than usual. Luna was speechless for a moment, then slowly nodded. She had forgotten her own birthday. She was touched that Ayla had remembered. Thank you, Ayla. I like it, of course. But when did you learn to speak so casually? Ayla merely smiled at Luna, offering no explanation. Luna didn't press it. She asked, "So once the antimatter annihilation cannon is installed, we can set off?" Ayla simply nodded. Indeed. The antimatter annihilation cannon's primary energy source is antimatter. Since antimatter is the exact opposite of matter, most matter, even the matter that makes up the enemy's ships will be unable to withstand its projectile. The antimatter annihilation cannon X will serve as the main cannon for our larger vessels. We are also developing Y and Z models, covering secondary and smaller cannons respectively. However, the research cycle for those is very long. This single antimatter annihilation cannon X alone will raise our probability of victory by 30%. While that won't guarantee success, it should be sufficient to overcome the enemy civilization. Based on my analysis, this is the best time to strike. The enemy civilization will continue to develop, and waiting any longer will only decrease our chances of success. Luna frowned after hearing Ayla's explanation. Ayla, you seem to be talking more than usual. The first half of her response, the explanation, had been unnecessary. Luna, I have incorporated an explanatory system into my core programming. This system allows me to respond to your questions from multiple perspectives. A very textbook AI response. Luna nodded, ignoring it. She thought Ayla's verbose responses were likely due to her massive server, which made processing information more complex and less efficient than before. Then let's set course for the enemy. We've already waited long enough. Luna did the math. It was AD 3758, while their first encounter had been in AD 2806. Nearly 1,000 years had passed. In the void of space. The Hope, now equipped with the antimatter annihilation cannon, set off after 2 days of installation. The fleet, led by the Hope, began its journey, each ship trailing a pale blue plume of exhaust. A surge of excitement coursed through Luna. Ayla's voice came from behind her. Luna, don't you like the special cake I made for you? Luna was startled. Despite 2 days passing, she still hadn't seen her birthday cake, because it was too disturbing for most humans. While it was just a large cake, it contained millions of tiny insects, weevils from the rice and bean weevils from the soybeans. The original seeds had contained numerous dormant insects. Through Ayla's efforts, these insects had been successfully cultivated on a massive scale. Insects with higher protein content than beef are often consumed as a delicacy on Earth. But it wasn't something everyone could easily stomach, especially made into a cake. Ayla, what recipe did you use for this cake? Ayla responded, This. She displayed the recipe, Curious Cuisine Compendium, an online post from a popular social media account with 7 million views. Darkness. This was the backdrop of the cosmos, emptiness. This was the universe's main theme. The birth and death of any entity were mere embellishments on this vast, black canvas. After the events of 700 years ago, the geothermal civilization had tightened its defenses, constantly anticipating an attack. But the prolonged wait, the enemy's failure to materialize, had led to a relaxation of their defenses. From space, only a few dozen patrol ships were visible around the planet. A few more, positioned further out, served as an early warning system. This was a form of biological inertia, stemming from a fundamental principle of energy conservation. Creatures tend to conserve energy, therefore inertia is inevitable. The planet was significantly brighter than it had been 1,000 years earlier, with more structures rapidly appearing on the surface, no longer solely dependent on volcanic activity. This was largely due to the absolute zero missiles. The attacks had forced this civilization to wean itself off its reliance on geothermal energy, compelling a complete shift to nuclear power within a few centuries. External threats often serve as the best catalyst for progress. This adage proved true. Humanity's rapid development stemmed from its inherent nature, constant warfare. Human history was a history of war. Just as the planet's inhabitants were enjoying a period of peace and complacency, after centuries of relative calm, a beam of light appeared from afar, striking a massive crystal sphere on the surface. The sphere, upon being struck, evenly dispersed the light, transforming into a giant luminous orb. This sphere's light was visible for hundreds of kilometers. Instantly, chaos erupted. Countless warships launched. Beams of light shot out from the planet's surface into the cosmos. Using these light beams, the civilization pinpointed the enemy's location and distance within half an hour. Tens of thousands of ground-based laser cannons began to reorient. The planet lacked an atmosphere, so their weapons could be fired directly from the surface. And because they were lasers, they didn't need to account for gravitational effects, allowing them to weaponize the entire planet. They locked onto their target and began their attack within 10 minutes. Beams of light pierced the sky, each beam over 20 meters in diameter and 700 meters long like colossal glowing swords, blurring the line between science and magic, in the void of space. The fleet, a colossal force, spread out in a fan-like formation. Cruisers and destroyers led the advance. Laser weapons, being light itself, swept across space at near light speed, the fastest possible physical limit. The perfect optical weapon, like a gamma-ray burst, was only detectable after impact. Therefore, Luna couldn't detect the enemy's lasers directly. She could only sense the attack upon impact and then use her position to evade. This was the inherent flaw in laser weaponry. Fortunately, the distance between them was great enough. The moment the first laser grazed past the Hope at a distance of 40,000 kilometers, Ayla captured the scattered photons. The enemy is attacking. And on a large scale. Luna nodded. Within the brief span of that statement, hundreds of lasers had already passed them. Simultaneously, 2 of their warships were hit. Deploy electromagnetic shields across the fleet. Light, electricity, magnetism, and chemistry. Many things fell under the umbrella of electromagnetism. Laser weapons could be deflected using magnetic fields. The destroyers were closing in. Electromagnetic shields were deployed when each destroyer reached within 100 kilometers of its neighbor. Electromagnetic fields have a mutual attraction. Ayla leveraged this property, connecting the destroyer's electromagnetic shields to create a protective barrier, like a chainmail fence. From the flagship's bridge, Luna watched as the destroyers closed the distance. The electromagnetic shields didn't flash and sparkle as depicted in movies. Their activation was only visible on the instruments. About 10 seconds after the shields deployed, a laser struck one of them. Normally, light wasn't affected by magnetic fields. However, Luna observed that the shield glowed, becoming a visible mesh of energy. "What's happening?" Ayla explained. The electromagnetic shields don't deflect lasers using magnetic fields alone, but through the photoelectric effect and Delbruck scattering. The shields release numerous electrons and specialized atomic nuclei. The electrons, influenced by the magnetic field, are distributed evenly across the shield. While the magnetic field cannot directly deflect photons, the electrons can. The electric field generated by the nuclei also interferes with the photon's path. A massive electromagnetic shield, hundreds of kilometers long, illuminated the space. The fleet advanced under this protective barrier of light. They were now only 3 AU away from the enemy planet. At the first fleet's speed, it would take only 5 days to reach it. Since the enemy is so welcoming, let's offer them a gift. Luna gave the order, directing the battleships and cruisers to launch absolute zero missiles. Unburdened by gravity or air resistance, the high-velocity missiles could achieve speeds exceeding the fleet's own velocity. 3 days later, the missiles reached the enemy planet's outer atmosphere. Unlike previous deployments, these miniaturized absolute zero missiles detonated automatically when the ambient temperature reached 100 degrees Celsius or upon impact. A barrage of lasers targeted the incoming missiles. Silent explosions bloomed in the void of space. Intense cold instantly spread through the outer atmosphere, engulfing a 260-kilometer radius around the impact sites. Several alien warships were frozen, their propulsion systems failing as they plummeted towards the planet's surface. But they were suddenly pulled back as they neared 10 kilometers above ground. As Ayla had predicted, this civilization had developed countermeasures against absolute zero weapons. However, these weapons served merely to buy the fleet sufficient time. Within detection range, the fleet had arrived. The distance between them was now less than 1.4 AU. "This distance should be suitable," Luna asked from within the flagship. Ayla nodded. "Indeed. Then charge and fire." The massive antimatter annihilation cannon, nearly half the length of the Hope, 1152 meters, was mounted on the ship's front. A large sphere at the rear of the cannon housed the antimatter generator. This device used laser-induced collisions of gold atoms to generate high-temperature positrons and electrons, containing the positrons within a magnetic field. During the charging process, the electromagnetic thrusters were deactivated, and all controllable fusion reactors powered the antimatter cannon, after approximately 10 hours of charging. Antimatter. Charge complete. 408 kilo of antimatter charged. Fire. The 408 kilo of antimatter, compressed into a beam by the massive barrel, shot out, formless and colorless. It appeared as a cloud of gas. Civilizations without antimatter technology wouldn't even be able to detect its presence. Traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light, this antimatter reached the target planet's surface in 7.5 hours. The alien civilization was caught completely off guard, as the antimatter annihilated upon contact with the planet's surface. Boom! The resulting explosion was equivalent to 17.5 billion tons of TNT, 350 times more powerful than the Tsar Bomba, the largest hydrogen bomb ever detonated by humanity. The explosion's core radius reached 100 kilometers. Instantly, one hemisphere of the planet was engulfed in light, and the heat could be felt over 2,000 kilometers away. Unhindered by atmospheric resistance, the resulting shock wave, composed of dust and rock, spread across the planet's surface at 10 times the speed of sound, obliterating countless structures within an hour and a half. Witnessing this spectacle, the alien ships in orbit ceased their movements, silently observing the seemingly instantaneous destruction of their homeworld. Following the antimatter annihilation cannon's launch, the fleet continued its advance. Even with the thrusters deactivated, the fleet's momentum carried it forward. Estimated time of arrival at the target planet, 32 hours. Upon hearing this, Luna decisively ordered, "Send the battleships and landing ships ahead. Completely eliminate all enemy warships in orbit. Once the landing ships land, deploy all drones to establish absolute control of the planet's surface." The battleships and landing ships would be the vanguard, clearing out the enemy's orbital defenses to prevent interference with the Hope. This would also reveal whether the enemy possessed any hidden weaponry. Ayla immediately complied. She slowed the Hope and the remaining warships. The battleships and landing ships accelerated to maximum speed. 30 hours later, the battleships encountered the enemy fleet. Dozens of enemy warships instantly converged, their lasers firing, adding splashes of color to the cosmic darkness. Just as the enemy, brimming with confidence, anticipated their lasers striking their targets, something unexpected happened. Under Ayla's control, the battleships and landing ships performed an elegant, almost balletic dance amidst the laser fire, effortlessly dodging every shot. As an AI, Ayla possessed unparalleled computational capabilities, exceeding biological speeds by millions of orders of magnitude. For Ayla, any calculation was instantaneous. Remote lasers required impact detection, but at close range, she could predict their trajectory based solely on the laser cannon's aiming direction. Despite the close-range laser fire, not a single shot hit a battleship. As the flagship of the fleet, the battleships, under Ayla's control, retaliated with absolute zero missiles. Simultaneously, dozens of armor-piercing cannons on each battleship targeted enemy warships. Countless projectiles rained down, giving the enemy no chance to react. Since the enemy civilization lacked advanced electromagnetic technology, while their laser weaponry had a firepower advantage, their defenses were insufficient. When the 30-centimeter armor-piercing rounds, propelled by immense kinetic energy, impacted the enemy ships' hulls, they ripped through the outer layers instantly. Optical cables hung exposed, brilliant light leaking from within. The ships seemed to draw power from this light, and the moment the cables were severed, the vessels lost their ability to transmit this energy. Ayla observed the long tendrils trailing from the ships begin to dim. The absolute zero missiles arrived, their chilling cold seeping into the breaches, instantly incapacitating the enemy warships. Seeing this, Ayla increased the rate of fire. The enemy fleet fell into chaos. Activate high-power signal transmission equipment, preparing to hack into the enemy warship's control systems. Ayla planned to use radio signals to disrupt the enemy fleet's operations. However, this alien civilization's technology was quite different from Earth's. While not entirely fruitless, her efforts revealed that the enemy heavily relied on optical, Signals for communication. She focused her analysis on these optical signals. The enemy is formidable. What's the situation on the ground? What are the casualties? Most of our structures are underground and unaffected. Hurry! Enemy warships are closing in. Their maneuverability is far superior to ours. We must increase the distance. Our weaponry is less effective at close range. We've lost 3 more warships. Employ the light pollution tactic. Ayla processed and translated the torrent of information into Earth's languages. These extraterrestrial beings possessed extremely complex thought processes. The enemy fleet suddenly ceased fire. Numerous red-tipped protrusions on their ships began to glow. Within 3 minutes, they became almost as bright as stars. Ayla analyzed these lights, recognizing them not as simple light beams, but as high-energy gamma rays. As the beams struck, all cameras on the warships malfunctioned. The bombardment of photons affected many of the instruments on board. The enemy was buying time, drawing more warships into the engagement. The enemy ships appear to have stopped. It seems our light pollution tactic worked. All ships prepare for a concentrated bombardment. Countless glowing tendrils, the enemy's laser cannons were aimed at the Hope's battleships and landing ships. Now's the time. Ayla disregarded the enemy warship's concentration. A dispersed formation would be far more difficult to target. Open all landing ship hatches. Ares mechs, commence launch, deploy all units, engage in close quarters combat against enemy warships. The 1,200 Ares mechs from the 4 landing ships launched in a coordinated assault within 5 minutes. Their speed increased to 600 km in just 13 seconds, each mech subjected to a 13G peak acceleration as they hurtled towards enemy warships. The Ray. Enemy warships were taken aback by the sheer number of mechs. For a moment, their weapon systems faltered, uncertain which targets to prioritize. Ignore those small units. Target their main warships. The aliens seemed to have a central command structure, and Ayla quickly pinpointed its location. She redirected some of the Ares mechs to attack the enemy flagship. The 4 now empty landing ships moved to the front of the battleships, acting as a layer of protection. Lasers rained down on the landing ships, instantly melting their outer hulls. Within half a minute, the ships were breached, unlikely to last 5 minutes longer. Fortunately, the mechs were already close to the enemy fleet. They reached the enemy warships. A barrage of projectiles rained down, targeting the vulnerable points on the snail-shaped vessels. However, the projectile's power was limited, capable only of tearing through weaker sections of the enemy's hull. Are those little machines toys? It seems our enemy has no other tricks. All warships, assemble. After breaching the enemy's defenses, continue the assault. Fleets 5 and 6 intercept the enemy's rearguard. Wait, incoming message from the ground, incoming message. Command is reactivating ground-based weaponry. Within 2 light seconds, aliens time, the enemy, whose weaponry requires extensive recharge time, will be annihilated without a doubt. This is vengeance for our fallen comrades. Optical signals zipped back and forth between the ships. The extraterrestrial beings erupted in triumphant celebrations upon receiving this news. But a moment later, the mechs near the front lines vanished in puffs of light. Not fire, but the light from antimatter annihilation. A surge of high energy. Photons expanded outwards, instantly consuming a significant portion of a warship, as if the vessel had been erased. Each Ares mech carried 100 grams of antimatter, whose detonation yielded an explosive force of over 4 million tons of TNT, more than 100 times the combined power of the 2 nuclear weapons used in WW2 on Earth. And this was only the beginning. Mech after mech launched suicide attacks, a terrifyingly beautiful fireworks display in the vacuum of space. The geothermal civilization lost half its fleet, nearly 400 warships, to these explosions. Simultaneously, 12 battleships unleashed 240 absolute zero missiles in a relentless barrage on the stunned enemy fleet. These 240 missiles instantly blanketed a large swathe of space. This was what Ayla had referred to as the opportune moment. Only when the enemy warships were concentrated could their weapons achieve maximum effect. The relentless cold continued to incapacitate hundreds of enemy warships, and now The rearguard had arrived, with 5 cruisers swiftly engaging the enemy. The battle was now firmly in their favor.